One of my personal favorite movies/video games is Goldeneye. The movie released in 1995, but the video game came out 2 years later in 1997 for the Nintendo 64. Back then, 3D video games were still new and they were figuring out what was possible in a 3D game engine. James Bond has always had a vast assortment of interesting gadgets and props, but I think it would be fun to make this mine used briefly in the film. And fun fact, the movie's prop department was inspired by this old joystick. And it's also a very fun weapon to use in the video game. I've also always thought it would be so cool to one day walk into a store and see something on the shelf that I created. Maybe I could somehow redesign the mine to look like one of these cheap toys. I originally didn't want this to be a YouTube video, I just really wanted to make this for myself, but after thinking about all the skill sets involved in creating this, I thought I might as well film it to show the process and share it with you. Let's take a look at our mission objectives. It might look intimidating, but let's just take it one step at a time. I'm interested in vacuum forming. It's an old technique where you heat up plastic and then vacuum out the air to pull it down over a model to conform to its shape. But these machines seemed out of my price range, so how can I figure out how to do this myself for under $5? I thought, what if I can 3D model an attachment to fit onto my vacuum cleaner? This seemed like it would work in my head, but it just wasn't enough suction. So I redesigned the chamber to be much smaller and I added fewer holes in the top surface. And this design really sucks, so I think it works. I spotted some very cheap clear plastic plates that I think I can use to heat and lightly melt. Here is my first attempt at my DIY vacuum form setup. And I learned it needs to be heated for longer. Round 2. Much better. And so far the heat hasn't melted the 3D printed surface. I'm impressed with the small details it captured. I'll see how well it works on this toy car. And since this process captures a negative mold, you can use the plastic to form different materials like chocolate or ice cubes. And who else hasn't always wanted to eat a chocolate Game Boy cartridge? No one? Just me? Well, okay, anyway. Objective A complete, now let's program and create the circuit board. To control the light and speaker, I've chosen to use the ATtiny 85 microcontroller. It's only 6 pins and easy to program with the AVR USB programmer and the Arduino IDE. An example code would be to find the LED light to pin 0, and the push button to pin 3. Initialize the LED pin as output and the button as input. In the main loop, check if the button's voltage is low. Then turn the light on, wait 1/4 second, turn the light off, wait 1/4 second. Otherwise, keep the light on. We can test this program on a breadboard. See, the light is on unless the button is pressed. Then the light flickers every 1/4 second. I used the same ATtiny microcontroller for my Game Boy cartridge console, with interchangeable games. I designed the circuit in a PCB editing software. Then I really like to use my CNC machine to create the circuit board. A CNC machine can cut around the traces, then drill out the holes for the components, then carve out the final shape. No harsh chemicals are needed like in alternative PCB manufacturing. Then I solder the parts to the homemade circuit board. Up next, let's 3D print. As a 3D animator, I'm able to model the parts myself and send them to my 3D printer to print. This process was slow and it took a lot of trial and error, but finally found the dimensions that I like and that fit well together. I want my toy mine to attach to a watch, so the wristband parts hinge together with 3D printer filament. I like how it looks on the FDM printer, but for the final, I'm printing it on my resin 3D printer since the quality looks much smoother. Here is a side-by-side after spray painting them. I decided to paint it blue, just for a different look and style. I'll use these small but strong magnets to hold the watch band in place. It's time to add all the parts together and bring this toy to life. nailed it. I'm actually a little surprised I was able to make it work. It's time to create the clear vacuum-formed mold that will hold the toy to the packaging. And speaking of packaging, we need to create that, so let's do that next. I had fun and I filmed several secret agent type poses, and I chose a couple frames to composite together in Photoshop, along with some other cheesy spy type imagery. And honestly, who wouldn't want to buy this if they saw this on the store shelf? Hopefully not the clearance shelf. And I had these printed in semi-gloss cardstock and I carefully cut them out. Including the small hang tab seen on most of these kind of toys. It was strong, but I felt like making it stronger by gluing two sheets together. Finally, I glued down the clear plastic. And all I know is this makes me happy. I love how it turned out, and I hope you enjoyed seeing the process. This completes our last objective, and I wanted to thank you and leave you with this.